can't believe how long ago we met. I won't mention the figures. Well, it was above 50, that's for sure. I mean, yeah, 52 years. There, I've mentioned it. Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm going to talk a little bit about how I got to where I got to painting with Yes, which has been the most amazing fun, and 50 years just dash by when you're having that much fun. I went to art school in 1961, age 4 days after my 17th birthday, and it was an odd time to go to art school. I didn't really know why I was going. I thought I wanted to learn to paint and draw. I wanted to paint animals, natural history, but I also wanted to design the future. And it did end up that I got into the industrial design department more or less by accident, I think. It was a fortunate accident because fine art, which is where I started, got completely destroyed in art schools in England in 1961. It was an outrage, really, like the Chinese Cultural Revolution. All academic training came to a dead end. So artists, students who wanted to learn to draw and paint, it ended in 1961. The college I was at was full of tutors who really knew how to teach, how to draw, and how to teach how to paint. And suddenly, they had nothing to do in the skill that they'd learned and had imparted up to that point. And it was a crazy thing. It was the most damaging thing culturally you can imagine. They didn't just end it. They made sure it was difficult to restart. And it would be very difficult to restart teaching art properly at art schools now. If you can imagine life drawing, well, you can get live models, but they also had what they called cast drawings. That's plaster cast drawings. So great works of art from previous ages. Most art schools had a big collection of plaster casts, and the students had to draw and model these things. And it was a very good, very well practiced and well learned discipline. It helped immensely to learn to draw, to paint, having these things. So when this ended in 1961, not only did they not stop teaching it, all these teaching aids, all these plaster casts, whatever, were destroyed. They no longer existed. And now there's several generations where the tutors not only never learned to draw and paint, their teachers never learned to draw and paint. And to start teaching again would be very difficult, impossible. And it's hard to imagine anything more crazy than stopping to learn basic skills. Can you imagine a music school where suddenly musicians were told it's not about technical skill. Skill is an affectation. It's about the ideas behind what you do. And there were no ideas. It was an awful cultural catastrophe in my mind, anyway. I hated it. But there were also problems with industrial design, because the modern art movement and the modern design movement had similar problems. I'm sounding off, excuse me. I'm going to show you some pictures as well. I need glasses to show you pictures. Okay. When I was at Canterbury, I really couldn't understand why we were designing square boxes for everybody. And I did make a fuss about it. My tutor said, well, you know, form follows function. okay, think about that for a minute. What on earth do they mean? What function of the human being is best served by them living in a box? I mean, that's how it's taught, and it is that daft. If I persisted, and I did persist, and say, what function? What is this about? I was told to read Corbusier, and that in itself is a punishment. Corbusier had no interest in human beings. His attitude, which might have been laudable in some context, was that the banker, the butcher, and the baker all lived in identical boxes. So everyone had to be identically miserable. I had a tutor, and I thought I wanted to go on from Canterbury to an architectural school. And he said, no, they won't like you, you won't like them. I believed him. I then thought maybe the Royal College Industrial Design. He said, no. Misha Black runs that. He won't like you and you won't like him, which turned out to be true as it happened. He recommended David Pye, who was a great philosopher, great designer. He did architecture, but he ran the furniture school. So I applied there and I got in, and I told him that I basically would like to try and find out what kind of spaces make people feel good, as opposed to make them feel oppressed or anything else that modern architecture was doing. He said, okay, but you've got to do other things as well. And after I'd been there a while, he said, it's about time you design some furniture. This is the furniture school. So the first piece that I did was this, and it was called the sea urchin chair because it looked like a sea urchin. And the idea behind it was that you could approach it from any direction, sit on it, and it gave a proper, comfortable support. At the time, just after this, I was living at Edgerton Court. So if any of you have seen the movie that just came out about hypnosis, they mentioned Edgerton Court. They were in flat 1, I guess. No, flat 1 on the first floor. We were in flat 5 on the 3rd floor. And briefly, very briefly, Sid Barrett lived with us. And that was Sid's girlfriend, modeling for that chair. When I got back to doing the research that I wanted to do, I didn't make much progress. So a friend of mine ran all the questions past a bunch of kids. And the kids were asked, what don't you like about your bedroom where you sleep? And what would your ideal bedroom look like? Excuse me, getting all tangled up there. And the outcome was very interesting. The children described features of the bedroom that they didn't like, which were basically anything that could hide a presence. Spaces under the bed, full-length cupboards, full-length curtains over the windows, anything that could hide something. Clothes hanging on the back of chairs, clothes hanging on the back of doors. And simple, very basic. But when they were asked what they would like, we got everything from palaces, tree houses, tents, galleons, all kinds of things. And we had one child who described a space they physically felt. They could feel that there was nothing there. In the dark, they could feel the space where they were sleeping was empty. And they could feel that there was an entrance to that space, and the entrance was high enough so no one could loom over them. So taking those basic 3 ideas, I made a model. And that was that. That was my daughter. She's now living in Tokyo with a baby of her own. But I made that as the kind of the first demonstration of the architecture. But when I did my thesis, I had to make a model showing off all the spaces. So this was made for my master's degree. And it's not meant to be cut away like this. This is to demonstrate how the spaces interacted with each other and how people interacted with the spaces. Excuse me, I've got to get some water. Make sure there's room for water on this table. Aha. Yeah, thank you. When I made that first prototype, it was obvious that the basic idea behind making these spaces was defensible. Defensible space was the key, and I wanted to extrapolate from a child's bedroom to an adult one and to see what influence those kind of ideas made for the rest of the house. So this is what this model was demonstrating. In the foreground here we have a living room, a dining room, kitchen. This is a factory we had making full-size prototypes. And this is what it looks like inside. I'll just explain that the bedroom there is approached by a staircase that winds up. I don't know if I have any pictures of it. Yeah, that staircase goes 3 or 4 steps winding clockwise. And the idea that we found out afterwards, not when it was first designed, it was designed very intuitively, but it was felt that that would be more defensible than straight steps or steps going the other way. And it turns out that is true. Japanese fortresses, there's a martial art of fortress design called, what the hell is it called now? I can't remember. Anyway, there is a fortress design martial art, and the staircases, Chaku Jiu-Jitsu, yeah, I knew it would come to me. The living accommodation is approached by staircases rising clockwise. And the idea is that any attacker with a spear or a sword is always off balance. Any defender is in balance. And the idea is it gives them a 2 Dan rank advantage. Well, ideas like that, the more of those you could incorporate into the structure of the home, you're not going to need to defend it against people attacking with spears or swords, but you feel more secure if it is done that way. It's not just humans, animals feel the same. We saw some research that a rabbit can make a burrow that it can defend against a weasel. Rarely, but occasionally it does it. And it has an entrance that comes round and above the main entrance. So this side tunnel comes round and above. And the weasel might just feel that the rabbit at the back of its neck puts it at a disadvantage. Well, the rabbit isn't going to attack. But the weasel feels uncomfortable enough not to proceed. And it's that very basic, intuitive response that I was looking for when the building was designed. So I would say, for me, the issue was probably 80% about defendable space, and the balance was about aesthetic considerations. I very much like the arts and crafts movement, so what I was doing here was very much picking up on arts and crafts ideas rather than make it look science fiction. So This was a design for a Yes album, but it was also a design for a hotel in Australia. Lots of these projects, all of these projects, never happened. So we're just getting round now, probably 50 years on, to the first ones, which I'm hoping to see built. So that was intended for Darling Harbour in Australia. That was Steve's first solo album, and that was a design for a spa. Darling Harbour again. Rick invited me to meet some friends of his who were belonging to a church, and we met in Anaheim. I was asked to design a church for a congregation in Joshua Tree. This was the design. So everything starts with plans. This was for a park in Malaysia. DVA. And this was done for a proposal by a group to do a moon base, and they were going to build it on the moon eventually, but the prototype was to be built in Hawaii, where the stone, the regolith from the volcano, was presumed to be very similar to the stone on the moon. And I was asked to be involved because of the research I did at the Royal College. Obviously, very inhospitable place. Almost everything can kill you. Cold can kill you, the heat can kill you, the vacuum can kill you, the dust can kill you. And this is a project which, I've got no wood here to touch wood, but may just be starting in the near future. I want to build a visitor centre where I can put my paintings. So this is our home. Small hotel. So I'm moving on. These are the early paintings. Haven't finished yet. Whatever you may wish. My early work was drawing. Basically, I had trained to draw, so a lot of my early work was drawings. Paintings, I call them paintings because they are, but like this and these were all started as drawings. Drawing. Again, a drawing. This was fun. This was Tony Kaye's band. Relaya. Again, mostly a drawing. I used to say jokingly that it was painted with dirty water. There's so little actual paint involved in this picture, but what am I? This was intended for going for the one. I'm not saying much about these. I'm figuring they hopefully be relatively self-explanatory. I have mocked modern architecture, modern graphic design, and modern art, but I do use abstract painting. All my paintings, not all my paintings, start again. Many of the paintings do actually start with an abstract process. So this was basically splashing paint on the canvas, and it stayed like that for years until I thought I knew what it was, and then it became Rick's journey to the center of the earth. Similarly, this started very abstract, and a kind of psychedelic Jackson Pollock. It's a detail of a painting that can still be seen in the finished work. I love this painting, and the original got damaged, and so I felt I really wanted to revisit, and did. But the original has been found and restored. So we're well into proper paintings now. I'm working on linen with acrylic mostly. Ooh. Right, well this is a painting started long before Freya was born, and it's still not finished. But some are quite hard to decipher. This is a simpler version of the same painting. And the trees gradually being added. I'm going to be dragged off the stage in a minute. Okay, well, nearly through these. Another Steve So album. Steve says, So up again. Alan's solo album. Steve Wilson box set, The Ladder. When I painted the Fragile cover, after the album came out, I decided to work on the logo for Yes. But I did it at a time when I didn't know if they'd ever ask me to do another album cover. For all I knew, they would do something else entirely. So it was kind of weirdly speculative. But it's been amazing for me over the years. A lot of ideas. It's been an enormous amount of fun. I don't do many paintings, but a lot of the ones I've done have been for Yes. Aha. You're right, almost there. I think right now, I'm going to end it just about here, actually. There's a bunch of logos. Thank you very much. Really enjoyed doing this. Mickey Tay. I'm just going to say we'll be at the back signing stuff in a minute.
All right, Roger, fantastic, Roger. I've got to admit, that art is something else, you know? Okay, folks, we're going to have a 15-minute intermission. Just time enough for you to go and get 6 or 7 drinks. When the lights flash, please get back to your seats so we can get this show on the road, okay? Thank you.